So, diving right in, we've got this intense discussion suggesting that another Israel Iran war is on the horizon, right? It's like the headlines are screaming about missiles from Tehran locked on US bases and allies
Yeah,
sounding the
exactly.
alarm.
And what's striking is how these tensions are being amplified by multiple factors, like Trump's policies and Israel's recent escalatory moves, right?
Absolutely. It's this scenario where, as the video explains, both sides are ramping up their rhetoric and military preparations. There's mention of Tehran's missiles, targeted not just at Israel, but also showing that US bases might be potential targets.
Really eye-opening, right? And it's pretty alarming to think that US allies are sounding their alarms. It indicates that there's a widespread concern in the region and beyond. It's like alarm bells are ringing all over the place.
Yes, and if we break it down, think of it like this. One could see it as a chess match where each move, like Trump's policies, is pushing Iran further to a brink. It's like it's like every escalation on one side triggers a rapid
Yeah,
reaction
true.
on the other.
I totally agree. But here's something that I find interesting. Sometimes the narrative of an imminent war can be overly dramatic. Do you think the media is playing up the tension too much, or is it really as dire as it's presented?
That's a fair challenge, critique. On one hand, the heightened rhetoric certainly grabs attention. On the other, the details mentioned, like Iran targeting US bases, aren't to be taken lightly. It's like, if you're building a house on a shaky foundation, every brick counts.
Exactly. And um, it's interesting how the content credits Trump's and Israel's moves as prime drivers in this escalation. It implies a chain reaction, almost as if one decision inadvertently fuels the next, leading to this potential conflict spiral.
Right, exactly. It's like a domino effect. One provocative step leads to another defensive reaction, and then the stakes just keep rising. And those US allies, they're not sitting quietly, they're upping the alert levels, which, only amplifies the tension even more.
Yep, absolutely. And what do you think about the missile targeting aspect specifically? I mean, it's pretty clear from the video that there's a focus on like strategic positioning with these missiles aimed at sensitive US bases.
Yeah, it's fascinating and terrifying at the same time. Think of it like a high stakes game of darts. Each missile is aimed with precision and is a signal that the stakes are not just regional but truly global. And locking onto US bases, that's a direct challenge to, well, US influence.
I see your point. But don't you think there might be like some political maneuvering behind these dramatic gestures? I mean, sometimes these threats are more about posturing than immediate action.
Sure, that's a good point. It's like a dual edged approach. You use strong rhetoric to deter adversaries, while also ensuring that your defense forces are prepared for, eventualities. It's part of a broader strategy to maintain influence in a highly volatile region.
Right, indeed. And speaking of influence, the narrative ties into Israel's role in all this as well. With Netanyahu and the Israeli stance, they seem to be balancing the scales, trying to preserve their own security while also standing firmly against Iran's moves.
Exactly. It's a real balancing act. Israel is traditionally seen as a key regional player, and its actions, coupled with the sort of allies in alarm approach from the US, collectively drive this narrative of imminent conflict. It's almost like a well choreographed dance between deterrence and
That's it.
provocation.
It's really like a geopolitical tension cocktail, a mix of militant posturing, strategic alliances, and a dash of dramatic rhetoric. And even if we challenge some of the claims, the fact that these discussions are out there sends a pretty clear message.
Yeah, and an analogy might be it's like a simmering volcano. There's pressure building beneath the surface, and even a small misstep or trigger could lead to an eruption. And the missiles? They're like the markers that tell everyone, hey, things are about to blow up.
Exactly. Certainly, and then you have the international community and regional powers watching these moves closely. It reminds me of how history has so many instances where such tensions have either been diffused or exploded into open conflict.
Definitely. And there's also this discussion in the video about the broader implications, like it's not an isolated issue between Israel and Iran, but a potential flashpoint that involves multiple stakeholders, including the US.
Yeah, it's all interconnected. And isn't it interesting how this content almost frames the escalating tension as an inevitability? It's like saying, look, we're on the edge, and one wrong move may tip us into war. But I wonder, doesn't such framing risk escalating tensions further through a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy?
That's a solid critique. It's like if you constantly announce that a catastrophic event is imminent, you might inadvertently push decision makers towards more extreme measures out of fear. Yet the very real preparations that are taking place can't be ignored either. It's a complex balance between warning and exacerbating the situation.
Yep, I follow you there. Exactly. And it's also worth noting that this kind of rhetoric tends to heighten public anxiety too. When allies start sounding alarms, the general public might perceive it as a foregone conclusion rather than a set of precautionary measures.
True, it becomes a cycle. Tensions lead to heightened military readiness, which then fuels public concern, which in turn might push political leaders to double down on their stances. It's a bit like a runaway train, you know?
Indeed. And looking at it from a broader lens, this kind of dynamic reminds me of historical conflicts where heavy posturing ultimately led to inevitable clashes. But then again, sometimes this posturing can also serve as an effective deterrent.
Right, it's that classic paradox, you know? Sometimes showing strength prevents conflict, and sometimes it just escalates things further. It's like walking a tightrope between assurance and aggression.
Yeah, totally. One other element is the role of propaganda or media amplification in these events. With a title like Israel-Iran War Imminent, Tehran's missiles locked on us bases, allies sound alarm, we have to ask how much is fact-based versus dramatized for viewership.
That's an important point. The dramatization definitely plays a role. But at the same time, even if some details are amplified, the underlying strategic tensions remain real. It's like you might exaggerate the storm's size while the winds are still dangerously strong.
Right, exactly. And it's interesting that the video's description emphasizes that Trump's actions and Israel's escalations are pushing, Iran to the brink. It makes you wonder how much of this is a reaction versus deliberate provocation.
Yeah, it's a two-way street. There's a lot of historical baggage and unresolved issues in that corridor, and every political or military move gets interpreted through that lens. Plus, each side uses the actions of the other to justify their own aggressive posturing.
Yep, couldn't agree more. And then there's the question of alliances. With US bases being mentioned, it's like an indication that the US is inevitably drawn into the conflict. How do you see that playing out?
It's a tricky one. On the one hand, the US has long-standing military commitments in the region, and its bases represent not just strategic locations, but also symbols of power. Targeting these is a way of saying, we're not safe anywhere. But on the other hand, this might also serve as a cautionary call to the US to reconsider its role in regional conflicts.
True, exactly. And there's also the question of how these alerts and missile lock-ons affect diplomatic efforts. Does the build-up leave room for negotiation, or does it close off dialogue channels altogether?
Honestly, it's a double-edged sword. The heightened tension might force parties to come to the negotiating table to diffuse the situation, but if both sides are too entrenched in their positions, it might not leave any room for compromise. It's like trying to reverse a runaway freight train.
Yeah, that's a vivid image. And let's not forget, the content hints at the international implications, with allies actively voicing concerns. That collective concern can sometimes pull in multilateral diplomatic pressure, but it can also lead to a fragmentation of alliances.
Right, it's almost like a domino effect on a global scale. Allies may, for instance, increase their military alertness while simultaneously pushing their governments to call for urgent diplomatic talks. But then, as you said, that could either resolve the crisis or inadvertently worsen it by tightening the noose.
Indeed. There's definitely a chilling undercurrent in all of this. It feels like The world is standing on the edge of a precipice, with every decision carrying serious, far-reaching consequences.
Absolutely. And while it's possible that crunch diplomacy might avert the worst case scenario, the signals being sent right now, from missile targets to alarmed allies, are unmistakably ominous.
Yeah, really ominous indeed. I guess in the end, it all boils down to whether the decision makers can, step back from the brink before the situation escalates uncontrollably. What do you think?
Exactly. That's the $1 million question. It's like a high stakes balancing act, the need for deterrence versus the risk of actual conflict. And the current environment, fueled by provocative rhetoric and strategic maneuvers, certainly doesn't make that balancing any easier.
Yep, spot on. Well, it certainly gives us a lot to think about. It's a potent reminder of how, in geopolitics, every headline carries weight and every move has massive repercussions.
For sure. And while we hope that cooler heads prevail, the signals from Tehran, Washington, and Tel Aviv are undeniable in painting a picture of a tense, uncertain future.
Absolutely, indeed. Thanks for the deep dive today. Always a thrill exploring these complex dynamics with you.
Anytime, it's always a pleasure dissecting these issues together.